Hi everyone, Alex from AutoStore here. So this is episode 11 of How to Design an AutoStore, and this week we're on the final port, the SwingPort. So this port is designed to deliver a bin from an AutoStore that's placed on top of a mezzanine. So it's quite common actually to put an AutoStore on the mezzanine, which isn't very common for automation generally. AutoStores are quite commonly placed on mezzanines due to the lack of point loading, because the grid is obviously not actually weight bearing, it's only got to hold the robots on the top. The bins are stacked directly on top of each other, so the weight of those stacks of bins is actually over the full area of that bin, so 600 by 400 mil. So there's not that much point loading, which makes it easier to put onto a mezzanine. The mezzanine can also be timber topped, it doesn't have to be a concrete mezz, so it can be a little bit cheaper as well. So a lot of companies are taking advantage of that, particularly in the UK, where the standard spec builds or speculative builds from developers is like an 18-meter building, or at least sort of 12 meters. So you can easily get an auto store in with either a mezzanine over the top or the auto store on the mezz itself. So in the UK, there's actually 3 or 4 sites that have got auto stores on mezzanines. The biggest brand name is Asda. So they've got 2 auto stores on almost like the third story of a mezzanine, for their general merchandise. Asda don't actually use swing ports. They have their picking ports on the mezzanine with them, and then the target totes where they're picked into are then taken away on a conveyor. But you could easily put a swing port on there as well. So the way a swing port kind of works, so it's a bin lift connected to a port. So the bin lifts can go up to 16.5 meters. So that could be 5 meters from the top of the grid to the bottom, and then another 11 meters below the grid. So you can go quite high on your mezzanine as well. So if you've got like an 8 to 10 meter mezzanine with an auto store on the top, you can still reach the ground floor using those swing ports. Probably the easiest way to show you is actually just show the technical video of how it actually works. So I'll jump straight to that. Right, so as you can see here, the swing port is made up of the bin lift and the swing port itself. So the way it works on a system, you can see here the bin lift covers off that top and takes that bin down. So a robot will deliver a bin into the bin lift. The bin lift will bring it all the way down underneath the mezzanine to the swing port. And the swing port consists of 2 bins, and that just rotates in a carousel just with the 2. Similar to how the carousel port works, but just with the 2 bins rather than the 1. So let's just quickly watch that again. So, as I say, bin lift connected to the swing port itself. So a robot delivers that bin into the bin lift, and the bin lift brings the bin down to the swing port itself. Those 2 bins exchange, and then the original bin that was within the port goes back up in the bin lift for the robot to collect and place back on the top level of the grid in a free hole somewhere. So that's the swing port. One thing I didn't mention is the throughput capabilities of it. So the absolute maximum you can get through a swing port is 160 bins per hour. So it's the far lower end of throughputs that we can offer, somewhere around the conveyor port level, miles lower than the carousel, relay, fusion ports anyway. So you kind of need to weigh up whether you need that throughput or whether you do all the picking on the mezzanine and then down on like a conveyor or something like that. But it could be a good option for the inbounding, so you can deliver pallets directly to the swing ports and decant the entire pallet in onto the swing port. Then it would easily have the speed of throughput for that. Like I say, though, the absolute maximum is about 160, and the average we see is between 130 and 140 bins per hour. So can kind of weigh up whether it's worth doing or not. So that's it for this week, going through the swing port. We're finished on the ports now, going on to the robots. So next week we'll do the R5, which is the kind of the pin-up for AutoStore and the robot that you all recognise. See you then. Cheers.